The council chamber floated in space, circling a dead star that pulsed with strange light. Inside the massive crystal dome, 300 alien species sat in curved rows that reached up toward the ceiling. Some had tentacles, some had wings, some were just clouds of gas in clear containers. They all stared down at the single human standing in the center of the room. Minho stood alone on the white platform. His dark suit looked plain compared to the colors and shapes around him. He was 50 years old with gray hair starting at his temples. For the past 3 hours he had listened to the aliens talk about humanity. None of it was good. The speaker floated above him. It looked like a jellyfish made of light, with long tentacles that moved slowly through the air. Its name was Velthron, and its voice came from everywhere at once. Ambassador Minho of Earth, Velthron said. The Galactic Council has reached a decision. Humanity is guilty of all charges. Minho didn't move. He had expected this. Your species has committed aggressive expansion, Velthron continued. You spread too fast. You take too much. On the mining world of Keras 7, your machines woke up ancient weapons that killed 3,000 of our people. That was an accident, Minho said quietly. It was carelessness, Velthron replied. You are also guilty of technological recklessness. You experiment without thinking. You build without asking permission. You change things that should not be changed. Around the room, aliens made sounds of agreement. Clicks, whistles, and hums filled the air. And worst of all, Velthron said, you are guilty of cultural contamination. Your music hurts our people. Your entertainment corrupts our young. Your ideas spread like disease. 17 species have reported problems because of human influence. Minho wanted to argue. He wanted to shout that music couldn't hurt anyone, that ideas weren't diseases. But he stayed quiet. He had learned that arguing with the council was useless. We invited you to change, Velthron said. We offered you genetic modifications. We offered to make you compatible with galactic civilization. You refused. You wanted to change what makes us human, Minho said. We said no. Then you are incompatible, Velthron said simply. The council has voted. Earth and all human colonies within 50 light years will be quarantined. We will collapse all hyperspace routes to your system. You have 10 cycles to evacuate anyone beyond the quarantine zone. After that, any human ship that crosses the barrier will be destroyed. The room was silent now. Minho felt the weight of those words. Quarantine meant isolation. It meant no trade, no contact, no help. Earth would be alone. You cannot trade with us, Velthron continued. You cannot communicate with us. You cannot leave your space. This is our final decision. Minho looked around the room slowly. He looked at each alien species one by one. Some looked satisfied. Some looked sad. Most looked relieved, like a problem had been solved. You're going to regret teaching us your technology, Minho said. The room erupted in noise. Aliens shouted in 100 different languages. Velthron's tentacles jerked in surprise. You dare threaten this council? Velthron demanded. I'm not threatening, Minho said calmly. I'm telling you the truth. You're making a mistake. He turned and walked toward the exit. No one had dismissed him. In the 3,000-year history of the Galactic Council, no one had ever left before being told to leave. Guards moved to stop him, but Velthron waved them back. Let him go, Velthron said. He is primitive. He doesn't understand respect. Minho heard this as the doors closed behind him. He didn't care. He had said what needed to be said. The trip back to Earth took 3 days. Minho's ship was small and old, nothing like the beautiful alien vessels he passed. Through the window he watched the stars and thought about what came next. His hands shook a little, not from fear but from anger. When he finally reached Earth, the planet looked beautiful from orbit. Blue and green and white, hanging in the darkness like a jewel. Minho had traveled to 30 alien worlds and none of them compared to home. But home was in chaos. The news had reached Earth 6 hours ago, traveling through the quantum communication network. Everyone knew about the banishment. In the cities below, people were panicking. Minho's shuttle landed in Switzerland at a military base hidden inside a mountain. He was tired and wanted to sleep, but there was no time. He walked through gray corridors until he reached a secure room deep underground. Fleet Admiral Jiwan was waiting for him. She was 60 years old with short white hair and sharp eyes. She had been preparing for this day since humanity first met the aliens 20 years ago. They actually did it, Jiwan said. Yes, Minho replied, sitting down heavily. 10 cycles to evacuate. Then the barrier goes up. How many people are outside the 50 light-year zone? About 3 million. On 12 colonies and 40 mining stations. Jiwan nodded. We can get them all back. The ships are ready, she paused. But that's not why I called you here. She touched a control panel on the table. A hologram appeared, showing complex diagrams and numbers that Minho didn't fully understand. Protocol Exodus, Jiwan said. We've been developing it in secret. Just in case, and what is it? A plan to survive. And more than survive, Jiwan's eyes were hard. The Council thinks isolation will destroy us. They think we'll run out of resources. They think we'll collapse without their help. Won't we? No, Jiwan smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. We have everything we need in our solar system. Hydrogen from Jupiter, metals from the asteroid belt, energy from the sun. We can be completely self-sufficient, but we'll be trapped, Minho said. For now. But the Council made a mistake. They taught us their technology. They showed us their science. They gave us 20 years to learn. Jiwan leaned forward. We're going to use that time. Behind the barrier, we're going to build. We're going to research. We're going to become stronger than they can imagine. How long will it take? A century. Maybe 2, maybe 3. Jiwan's voice was steady. But when we're ready, when we come back, they won't be able to dismiss us. They won't be able to threaten us. We'll make them regret this decision. Minho thought about his children, his grandchildren. They would live their whole lives behind the barrier. They would never see the galaxy he had seen. But maybe their children would. Maybe their children's children would walk among the stars as equals, not as beggars. What do you need from me? Minho asked. Addresses. To the people of Earth, tell them the truth. Tell them this isn't the end. Tell them we're going to survive. Jiwan stood up. Tell them we're going to win. That night, Minho spoke to the world. His face appeared on every screen in every home in every language. He told them about the banishment. He told them about the plan. He told them it would be hard, but humanity had always survived hard times. They think we're dangerous, Minho said. They think we're reckless. They think we don't belong in their galaxy. He paused. Maybe they're right, but that doesn't mean we'll give up. That doesn't mean we'll fade away. We're going to survive. And someday we're going to show them what humanity can really do. Around the world, people listened. Some cried. Some were angry. But most felt something else. Something that humans had always felt when pushed into a corner. Determination. In orbit above Earth, construction began. Shipyards expanded. Factories multiplied. Scientists worked day and night. The galaxy had rejected humanity. Now humanity would reject the galaxy's rules. The barrier went up exactly 10 cycles later. It surrounded the entire solar system and all human colonies nearby. It shimmered with deadly energy. Any ship that touched it would be destroyed instantly. Behind that barrier, humanity got to work. They had been thrown out of the galaxy. Now they would make the galaxy beg them to come back. It would take time. It would take sacrifice. But humans were good at both of those things. The galaxy would learn that lesson eventually. 100 years had passed since the barrier went up. Outside, the galaxy had forgotten about humanity. Inside, everything had changed. The barrier still shimmered at the edge of human space, pulsing with energy that would kill anyone who touched it. No council ship had come close in decades. To the aliens, Earth had become a ghost story, a warning about what happens when you refuse to follow the rules. They thought humanity was dying slowly, running out of resources, fading into history. They were completely wrong. Soman floated in zero gravity, looking out at the massive structure before her. It was called Forge Station Alpha, and it was the size of a small planet. Metal arms stretched in every direction, each one longer than Earth's moon. Factories covered its surface like a metal skin. Ships moved around it like insects around a hive. Status report, Sumin said into her communicator. All systems running at full capacity, a voice replied. We're producing 2,000 tons of processed material every hour, Soman smiled. She was 70 years old but looked 50. Thanks to medical advances humanity had made in isolation. Her job was simple, turn the solar system's resources into everything humanity needed. And she was very good at her job. Saturn was gone now. The giant planet had been taken apart over the last 50 years, its mass converted into building materials. Uranus had followed. Jupiter would be next, though they would leave its core intact. Humanity needed the hydrogen. 17 billion people now lived in space. Some lived on orbital stations. Some lived in giant cylinders that spun to create artificial gravity. Some lived on Mars, which had been completely transformed. The red planet now had oceans and forests, created through decades of careful work. Earth itself had changed too. With most of humanity living in space, the planet had become a garden. Cities had been torn down and replaced with forests. Animals that had been nearly extinct now thrived. Earth was more beautiful than it had been in centuries. But beauty wasn't the point. Power was the point. "Captain Hyun is requesting permission to launch," the voice in Soman's communicator said. "Granted," Soman replied. She watched as a ship detached from the station. It was sleek and black with curves that looked almost organic. It didn't look like the boxy ships humanity had built a century ago. It didn't look like alien ships either. It looked like something new. The ship was part of the Ghost Fleet. 3,000 vessels, each one more advanced than anything the Galactic Council possessed. They didn't use hyperspace gates like alien ships. Instead, they used something humanity had invented: quantum fold drives. Captain Hyun sat in the command chair of his ship, watching the stars through the view screen. He was 40 years old and had been training for this mission his entire life. His ship was called the Silent Blade, and it was completely invisible to alien sensors. "Fold drive charging," his co-pilot said. "Begin the test," Hyun replied. The ship seemed to bend, as if space itself was folding around it. There was no flash of light, no sound. One moment they were near Forge Station Alpha. The next moment they were 200 light-years away, deep in alien space. "Status?" Hyun asked. "All systems normal. We're in the Kepler 442 system. No detection. No alerts." Hyun looked at the alien station orbiting a distant planet. It was a mining facility, completely unaware that a human ship was watching it. They stayed for 3 seconds, recording everything. Then they folded back to human space. The entire trip took less than a minute. Back at Forge Station Alpha, Soman watched the data come in. The test had worked perfectly. Humanity could now appear anywhere in the galaxy without using hyperspace routes. They could come and go without being seen. "Send the report to Admiral Jiwon," Soman said. "Tell her we're ready." On Earth, in a building in the rebuilt city of Busan, the leaders of humanity gathered. President Yoonji stood at the head of a long table, looking at the faces around her. These people represented every human colony, every station, every ship. "The question before us," Yoonji said, "is simple. What do we do now?" General Taewon spoke first. He was a large man with scars on his face from an accident in his youth. "We attack. We have the ships. We have the weapons. We show the Council what happens when you trap humanity in a corner." Several people nodded in agreement. "No," said another voice. It was Minho, the ambassador who had been banished a century ago. He was impossibly old now, kept alive by machines and medicine. His body was weak, but his mind was still sharp. "We don't attack. Then what?" Taewon demanded. "We just stay hidden forever?" "We make them need us first," Minho said. "The Council banished us because they didn't need us. Because they thought we were a problem. We have to change that calculation." "How?" Yoonji asked. "We become useful. Quietly. Secretly. We help them without them knowing it's us." Minho leaned forward in his wheelchair. "Engineer Deun, show them what you've built." A young woman stood up. Deun was only 30, but she was already one of humanity's greatest scientists. She touched a control and a hologram appeared above the table. "This is a portable wormhole generator," Deun said. "The Council uses massive gates to create wormholes. It takes years to build one. This device fits in a backpack and can create a stable wormhole anywhere." The room was silent. "The implications are obvious," Deun continued. "We can move anything, anywhere, instantly. Supplies, people, weapons, the Council has no defense against this because they don't know it's possible." "How long have we had this?" someone asked. 5 years. We've been testing it in secret." Minho spoke again. "Daeun's invention changes everything. But only if we use it wisely. We don't reveal ourselves. Not yet. We operate in the shadows. We become the solution to the Council's problems before they even know we exist." "What problems?" Yoonji asked. Scientist Nari stood up. She was quiet and serious, with glasses that she didn't really need but wore anyway. "We've been watching them. For 15 years we've had probes throughout Council space." "What kind of probes?" Taewon asked. "Small ones. Self-replicating. Invisible to their sensors. Nari touched her control panel. The hologram changed, showing a map of the galaxy. Millions of tiny dots appeared, spread across hundreds of systems. We have 17 million probes now. They watch. They listen. They learn. And they tell us everything. The room erupted in shocked whispers. You're telling us, Yunji said slowly, that we've been spying on the entire Galactic Council for 15 years? Yes, Nari said simply. We know where every council ship is. We know their military codes. We know their genetic weaknesses. We know which species are fighting with each other. We know everything. And what have you learned? Minyo asked. Nari smiled slightly. They're falling apart. Trade disputes. Border conflicts. A plague in the outer rim that they can't cure. They're weaker now than when they banished us. So we should attack, Taewon said again. No, Minho repeated. We should help anonymously. We cure their plague. We stop their pirates. We become indispensable. And then, when they realize they can't survive without us, we reveal ourselves. The debate went on for hours. Some wanted war, some wanted isolation, but in the end, Minho's plan won by a narrow vote. Humanity would return to the galaxy, but not as conquerors, not as beggars. They would return as the solution to problems the Council didn't know how to solve. Outpost Commander Sunho stood on the bridge of a monitoring station at the edge of human space. Through the window he could see the barrier, still shimmering after a century. First probe is ready, his assistant said. Launch it, Sunho ordered. A tiny object, no bigger than a person's hand, approached the barrier. Everyone held their breath. The probe touched the energy field and passed through without triggering any alarms. It jumped to quantum fold drive and vanished. 3 seconds later, it returned with data from 200 light-years away. The Council never saw it, the assistant said. Amazed, Sunho allowed himself a small smile. For 100 years, humanity had been trapped. Now they could go anywhere. The barrier meant nothing anymore. Begin the operation, Sunho said. Deploy the seed probes. I want coverage of every Council world within 6 months. Yes, sir. Sunho looked out at the stars. The galaxy thought humanity was dead. Soon, very soon, they would learn the truth. Humanity wasn't dead. They were everywhere, watching, waiting, growing stronger, and when the time was right, the galaxy would beg humanity to return. Admiral Jiwon, now impossibly old but kept alive by the best medicine humanity could create, watched the reports come in. Ships were ready. Weapons were ready. The probes were deployed. The plan was in motion. She thought about Minho's words from a century ago. You're going to regret teaching us your technology. The Council had taught humanity everything. And humanity had learned well. Too well, Jiwon smiled. The long wait was almost over. 300 years had passed since Earth's banishment. In the Galactic Council, no one remembered why humanity had been dangerous. The current High Speaker, a creature called Threnodiax, had never met a human. He had only seen pictures in old history files. The barrier around human space was still there, maintained by old machines that no one bothered to check anymore. On star maps, the Sol system was marked in red with a simple label. Dead zone. Stay away. The Council had new problems now. Bigger problems. A plague was killing people across the outer rim. Entire planets were dying. Council doctors couldn't find a cure. Worse, pirate fleets were attacking trade ships, stealing supplies meant for plague victims. And worst of all, the Council's energy production couldn't keep up with demand. Worlds were going dark. Threnodiax looked at the reports and felt tired. He was old even by his species standards. He wanted to retire, but the Council needed him. No one else wanted the job of holding this failing alliance together. Any good news? He asked his assistant. The Void Traders delivered another shipment to Krelix 9, the assistant said. Medicine that actually works against the plague. Threnodiax perked up. The Void Traders again? Who are they? Unknown. They appear at frontier worlds, offer technology, then disappear. They never use hyperspace gates. We can't track them. What do they want in return? Data, mostly. Historical records. Genetic samples. Nothing that seems dangerous. Threnodiax thought about this. The Void Traders had been appearing for about 50 years now. They showed up at desperate worlds, offered help, and vanished. No one knew what species they were. They always wore masks and holographic disguises. Let them continue, Threnodiax said. We need all the help we can get. What Threnodiax didn't know was that every Void Trader was human. They moved through the galaxy in ships the Council couldn't detect, helping people while gathering information. Each transaction was carefully planned. Captain June stood on the bridge of her ship, the Wandering Star. Her face was hidden behind a holographic mask that made her look like a species from the far edge of the galaxy. Her crew was entirely human, all of them trained since birth for these missions. Approaching Krelix 9, her pilot said. Through the view screen, June could see the planet. It looked sick. The oceans were the wrong color. The cities were dark in places where they should be bright. The plague had hit this world hard. Prepare the medicine, June ordered. Her cargo hold was full of medicine that Council doctors said was impossible to create. But human science had figured it out 5 years ago. Every dose they delivered saved lives and made humanity seem more mysterious. The Krelix Port Authority contacted them. Unknown vessel, identify yourself. We are void traders, June said, her voice modified to sound alien. We bring medicine for the plague. There was a long pause. Then, land at Port 7, we'll send inspectors. No inspectors. We value our privacy. We'll deliver the medicine to your loading dock and leave. In exchange, we want genetic samples from your population. Standard medical data. Nothing invasive. Another pause. June knew they would agree. They always did. The plague was killing millions. They couldn't afford to refuse help. Agreed, the Port Authority said. 3 hours later, the medicine was delivered. The genetic samples were loaded onto June's ship. She left the system using her quantum fold drive, appearing and disappearing without a trace. Back at the hidden human monitoring station, Director Yuna received June's data. She was 50 years old, small and quiet, but she ran the largest intelligence network in galactic history. Log the genetic data, Yuna ordered. Add it to the database. On her screen, she could see data from 17 million seed probes scattered across Council space. Each probe was smaller than a human fist, invisible to alien sensors and smarter than most alien computers. The probes were everywhere. In communication satellites, in defense networks, in civilian databases, in government buildings. They watched everything, learned everything, and reported everything back to human intelligence. Yuna knew where every Council warship was at this exact moment. She knew the genetic makeup of every major species. She knew which Council members were fighting, which ones were planning betrayals, which ones were desperate for help. She knew everything, and the Council knew nothing about humanity. Status on Operation Shadow? Yuna asked. On schedule, her assistant replied. Commander Junho's team hit another convoy yesterday. Yuna pulled up the report. Commander Junho led one of the pirate fleets that were actually human-operated. They attacked Council ships, but carefully. They stole supplies, but made sure to leave survivors. They created chaos, but always left clues that didn't quite make sense. The goal was simple. Make the Council paranoid. Make them weak. Make them desperate for help. Junho sat in the captain's chair of his ship, the Black Comet. It looked like a pirate vessel, with random parts bolted on and scorch marks on the hull. But underneath the disguise, it was as advanced as any ship in the Ghost Fleet. Target acquired, his weapons officer said. Council supply ship heading to the Rigel colony. Any escorts? 2 light cruisers? Old models. Easy, Junho said. Take out their engines. Leave their life support intact. We're not murderers. The attack lasted 3 minutes. Junho's ship appeared out of nowhere, disabled all 3 Council vessels, and took their cargo. Medical supplies mostly, food, water. But before leaving, Junho did something unusual. He sent a message to the Council ships. The void protects those who seek the truth. It was a cryptic message that meant nothing, but Council intelligence would spend weeks trying to figure it out. They would waste time and resources chasing shadows. Junho jumped away, delivering the stolen supplies to a human distribution center. The supplies would be repackaged and delivered to frontier worlds by the void traders, making humanity seem helpful while the pirates made the Council seem weak. It was all part of the plan. Back on Earth, scientist Nari reviewed the latest data from the probe network. Something interesting was happening. The plague that was killing millions across the Outer Rim wasn't natural. It's a bioweapon, Nari said to her team, created by the Talrex species. It was supposed to be a population control measure, but it mutated. Do the Council know? Someone asked. No. They're still trying to figure out where it came from. Nari smiled coldly. But we know. We've known for 3 years. We've been watching the Talrex try to hide their mistake. Should we tell the council? Not yet. Let them suffer a bit longer. Let them get desperate. Nari pulled up another screen. But we can cure it now. I've developed a complete treatment. We just need to deliver it at the right moment. That moment came 6 months later. The plague had spread to over 200 worlds. Trillions were sick. Billions had died. The council was on the edge of collapse, with species blaming each other and threatening war. Then, on a Tuesday morning at exactly the same moment, every public computer network in council space received the same data package. It appeared simultaneously on government networks, civilian networks, military networks. It bypassed every security system as if they didn't exist. The package contained 3 things. First, a complete cure for the plague. The formula, the production process, everything needed to save lives immediately. Second, proof that the Talrex species had created the bioweapon. Internal documents, communication records, genetic data. Undeniable evidence. Third, a simple message. The void seeks only truth and health for all. The reaction was immediate and chaotic. Worlds started producing the cure within hours. The plague began to retreat. Millions of lives were saved. But the political damage was catastrophic. The Talrex were revealed as monsters who had accidentally killed billions. Other species turned on them. The Talrex government fell within days. Their homeworld was placed under council sanctions. But more importantly, every species in the council had the same question. Who were the void traders? How did they know about the bioweapon? How did they cure the plague? And how did they bypass every security system in the galaxy simultaneously? Council intelligence went into overdrive. They searched for any sign of the void traders. They found nothing. The mysterious helpers had no homeworld, no base, no pattern. They appeared and disappeared like ghosts. High Speaker Threnadax called an emergency council session. Representatives from 300 species gathered, all talking at once. The void traders saved us, one said. They violated our security, another argued. They exposed the Talrex plot, a third pointed out. But who are they? Threnadax demanded. How can we trust them if we don't know who they are? No one had an answer. What they didn't know was that Director Yuna was watching the entire session through a probe hidden in the council chamber's main computer. She smiled as she listened to them argue. They're starting to rely on us, she said to her team. They don't know who we are, but they know they need us. That's exactly where we want them. On Earth, in the rebuilt city of Busan, the human leadership reviewed the results. The plague was cured. The council was weakened and paranoid. Trust between species was at an all-time low. And humanity was seen as mysterious saviors, not as the banished species from 3 centuries ago. Is it time? President Yunji asked. Admiral Jiwon, now more machine than human after 3 centuries of life extension, shook her head. Not yet. Let them get weaker. Let them need us more. The Galactic Council was dying. Not quickly, but everyone could see it happening. The Velthran species, the same ones who had led humanity's banishment 300 years ago, declared independence from the Council. They claimed 12 star systems and built weapons. Other species talked about doing the same. Trade between worlds had nearly stopped. Trust was gone. High Speaker Threnadax held emergency meetings every day, but nothing helped. The alliance that had lasted 5,000 years was breaking apart, and he couldn't stop it. Then came the message. It appeared everywhere at once. Every screen in council space showed the same image at the exact same moment. Government buildings, homes, ships, stations, everything. Security meant nothing. The message simply appeared. A human woman stood in the image. She was young, maybe 40, with dark hair and calm eyes. She wore a simple gray suit. Behind her was a symbol. Earth, the blue planet humanity called home. My name is Minji, the woman said. I am ambassador of Earth and representative of humanity. Across the galaxy, billions of beings stopped what they were doing. Humanity? The species that had been banished 3 centuries ago? They were supposed to be dead. 300 years ago, Minji continued, the Galactic Council cast us out. You called us dangerous. You called us reckless. You called us incompatible with galactic civilization. She paused. You were right. Threnadax watched the message from his office, his body frozen in shock. But now you need what only humanity can provide, Minji said. Your alliance is falling apart. Your people are suffering. Your technology isn't enough anymore. We have watched. We have waited. and we have prepared." The image changed, showing data that made Threnadax's blood run cold. Proof that the Void Traders were human. Proof that half the pirate attacks were human operations. Proof that humanity had been inside Council space for decades, moving freely, gathering information, helping and hindering as they chose. "We offer you a choice," Minji said. "Reject us again, face your collapse alone, and wonder what else we can do that you don't know about. Or accept us as true equals, work together and prosper. You have one lunar cycle to decide. We will be waiting at the barrier." The message ended. Across the galaxy, silence fell. Then chaos erupted. Council intelligence worked frantically, checking their systems. Everything Minji had shown was true. The Void Traders were human. The mysterious help had come from Earth, and worse, much worse, humanity had probes everywhere. In their networks. In their databases. In their private communications. How long? Threnadax demanded. "How long have they been watching us?" "At least 15 years, his intelligence chief said. "Maybe longer. We found over 17 million probes. They're everywhere. They've seen everything." Threnadax felt sick. For 15 years, maybe more, humanity had been inside Council space. They had watched the Council's secrets. They had manipulated events. They had played the entire galaxy like a game. "Can we remove the probes?" Threnadax asked. "We're trying, but they're self-replicating. For every one we destroy, 2 more appear, and they're so small, so well hidden." The intelligence chief looked defeated. "They know everything about us, and we know almost nothing about them." The Council met in emergency session. 300 species all talking at once. Some were angry. Some were scared. A few were impressed. "This is an invasion," one representative shouted. "They saved us from the plague," another pointed out. "They spied on us for years. They helped us when we needed it." The arguments went on for days. Meanwhile, humanity did something that shocked everyone even more. They gave a demonstration. Fleet Marshal Hanul commanded the Ghost Fleet from her flagship, the Eternal Dawn. She was 70 years old, born long after the banishment, trained her entire life for this moment. Around her ship, 5,000 vessels hung in space at the edge of the barrier. "All ships report ready," her communications officer said. "Show them what we can do," Hanul ordered. The Ghost Fleet powered up their quantum fold drives. Space itself seemed to ripple around the ships. Council sensors, watching from a safe distance, registered energy readings they had never seen before. Then Hanul ordered the real demonstration. In an empty star system 300 light-years away, a small moon orbited a dead planet. Council observers watched through long-range sensors as something impossible happened. A wormhole opened inside the moon. Not near it, inside it. The wormhole was tiny, barely a meter across, but it was connected to a point in deep space. The moon's gravity pulled it toward the wormhole's center. In seconds, the entire moon collapsed into the artificial singularity. The energy released was enormous. But humanity captured it all, storing it in collector fields that shouldn't have been possible to create. Then the wormhole closed, leaving nothing but empty space where a moon had been. The message was clear. Humanity could open wormholes anywhere. They could destroy anything. They could appear without warning and disappear without trace. The barrier that was supposed to trap them meant nothing. "My God," Threnadax whispered, watching the replay. "What have they become?" In the council chamber, the debate reached a critical point. Ambassador Kelthus of the Riven Empire stood to speak. He was old even by his long-lived species standards. He had been a junior diplomat during humanity's original banishment. "I remember the humans," Kelthus said. His voice was strong despite his age. "I was young when we cast them out. I thought we were right. They were different. They didn't follow our rules. They scared us." The chamber was quiet, listening, but ask yourselves, why were we scared? Because they were weak? No, because they were strong. Because they grew fast. Because they didn't need our permission to succeed. Kelthus looked around the room. "We banished them because we couldn't control them. And now, 300 years later, they've proven we were right to fear them, but not for the reasons we thought." "What do you mean?" someone asked. "We feared they would be dangerous to the galaxy. Instead, they became dangerous to us specifically. We created an enemy by treating them as one." Kelthus paused. "They've been inside our space for years. They could have destroyed us. They could have conquered us. They didn't. They helped us instead. They cured the plague. They stopped pirates. They gave us technology. Yes, they manipulated us. Yes, they spied on us. But they also saved billions of lives. You want to let them back in? Another representative demanded. I want to stop making the same mistake twice, Kelthus said. We have a choice. We can have them as allies who have proven they can stand alone, or as enemies who have proven they can infiltrate and understand us completely. Which would you prefer? The debate went on for 3 more days. Species threatened to leave if humanity was accepted. Other species threatened to leave if they weren't. The council was being torn apart by this decision just as much as by their other problems. Finally, Threnadax called for a vote. It was close, very close, but in the end the decision was made. Humanity would be allowed to return. Full council membership. All restrictions lifted. They would have the same rights as any other species. But everyone knew the truth. Humanity wasn't being invited back as equals. They were being invited back because the council couldn't afford to refuse them. Humanity had made themselves necessary. Minji received the notification in her quarters on Earth. She read the council's official acceptance and felt a mix of emotions. Pride, certainly. Her ancestor Minho had been right. Relief that the long wait was over. But also sadness for all the people who had lived and died behind the barrier, never seeing the galaxy they dreamed of. Prepare the delegation, Minji ordered. We're going back. Admiral Jiwon watched the news from her medical pod, the machines that kept her ancient body alive humming quietly. She had lived for 300 years to see this moment. Humanity had been cast out, but now they were returning on their own terms. We did it, someone said to her. No, Jiwon said softly. Minho did it. 300 years ago, when he walked out of that council chamber and told them they would regret their decision. He was right. They do regret it. Will we forgive them? Jiwon thought about that. We'll forgive. But we'll never forget. And we'll make sure the galaxy never forgets what happens when you underestimate humanity. On the barrier's edge, the Ghost Fleet waited. Soon, very soon, they would cross into the galaxy again, not as refugees, not as criminals, but as the second most powerful force in Council space. The first most powerful force was still human ingenuity, human stubbornness, and human refusal to accept defeat. Across human space, 20 billion people celebrated. They had been isolated for 3 centuries. They had been called dangerous and reckless. They had been treated as unworthy. Now they were going home to a galaxy that needed them, and this time no one would ever dismiss humanity again. The galaxy had rejected them once. Now the galaxy needed them, and humanity would make sure that need never went away. The barrier still shimmered with deadly energy. But in 1 month, ships would cross it for the first time in 300 years. Human ships, carrying human crews, flying human flags. The banishment was over. The return had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same. 6 months after the council's vote, Ambassador Minji walked into the council chamber. The same chamber where her ancestor Minho had been condemned 300 years ago. But everything was different now. She wasn't alone. 50 human delegates walked with her. They represented Earth, the lunar colonies, the Mars republics, and the deep space habitats. They wore simple gray suits with Earth's symbol on their shoulders. They looked small compared to some of the aliens, but they walked with confidence. The chamber was full. Every species had sent representatives to watch humanity's return. Some looked curious. Some looked worried. A few looked angry. High Speaker Threnadax stood at the center podium. He looked old and tired. Leading the council through this crisis had aged him. Ambassador Minji of Earth, Threnadax said formally, on behalf of the Galactic Council, I welcome humanity back to galactic civilization. I also apologize. 300 years ago, we made a mistake. We acted out of fear. We failed to see your potential. We failed to understand your worth. Minji listened quietly. She had prepared a speech, but looking at Threnadax, she changed her mind. This wasn't a time for grand words. We accept your apology, Minji said simply. But we also want to be clear. We forgive, but we remember. We remember being judged unfairly. We remember being isolated. We remember 300 years of living behind a barrier. She paused. We will make sure the galaxy never forgets what happens when you underestimate humanity. Some delegates shifted uncomfortably. Others nodded in respect. We're not here for revenge, Minji continued. We're here to work together, to share what we've learned, to help build a better future. But we're here as equals. Never again will humanity beg for acceptance. Threnadax nodded slowly. Welcome back, Ambassador. Please take your seats. The human delegation sat in the section reserved for them. It was the second largest delegation space in the chamber, right after the Velthran. Humanity now had the same voting power as species that had been in the council for thousands of years. The ceremony was watched by trillions across the galaxy. Some saw it as a new beginning. Others saw it as a warning. Everyone understood that the galaxy had changed forever. After the ceremony, humanity began sharing their technology. But they were careful about what they shared and who they shared it with. The quantum fold drives went to species that had supported humanity's return. Suddenly, those species could move their ships anywhere without using hyperspace gates. Trade routes that had taken weeks now took hours. The economic advantage was enormous. Medical technology was shared freely. Human advances in genetics and disease treatment saved millions of lives across the galaxy. Doctors from hundreds of worlds came to study at human medical stations. But some technology stayed human. The portable wormhole generators remained a human monopoly. The ability to create and destroy matter at will was too dangerous to share widely. The probe technology that had let humanity spy on the galaxy for decades was kept secret. "We're not hiding things to be mean," Minji explained to the council. "We're being responsible. Some technology is too dangerous in the wrong hands. You taught us that lesson yourselves." Chief Engineer Johann oversaw the construction of the first human-designed starbase in council space. It was built in the Orion Arm, at a crossroads of major trade routes. The station was massive, with docking ports for 10,000 ships and living space for 5 million beings. The design was different from typical council architecture. It had curves where council stations had angles. It had windows where council stations had screens. It looked organic, almost alive, rotating slowly to create artificial gravity. "It's beautiful," one alien engineer said, watching the construction. "It's efficient," Johann replied. "We learned to do more with less during our isolation. Every part serves multiple purposes. Nothing is wasted." The station was completed in 2 years, half the time a council station would take. Within a year after that, it became the busiest trading hub in the Orion Arm. Ships came from all over the galaxy to trade, refuel, and experience human hospitality. But not everyone was happy with humanity's return. The Velthran Imperium had never forgiven humans for making them look foolish. They had been the ones to lead humanity's banishment. Now humanity had returned stronger than ever, and the Velthran looked weak by comparison. Velthran military leaders planned in secret. They would attack human colonies in the Centauri system. A quick strike, before humanity was fully established. They would show the galaxy that humans were still dangerous, still untrustworthy. The attack came on a Tuesday morning. 30 Velthran warships dropped out of hyperspace around Centauri Station. They began firing immediately, not bothering with warnings or declarations, but they had made a terrible mistake. Admiral Hanul's Ghost Fleet responded in 3 minutes, not 3 hours. 3 minutes, Velthran sensors detected nothing until the human ships appeared, already in firing positions. 500 Ghost Fleet vessels surrounded the attackers completely. Their weapons were charged. Their shields were up. They had been waiting. "Velthran Fleet," Hanul's voice came over all frequencies. "Power down your weapons and surrender. This is your only warning." The Velthran commander, shocked by how fast the humans had responded, made another mistake. He ordered his ships to fire. The battle lasted 20 seconds. Human point defense systems shot down every Velthran missile before they reached their targets. Human electronic warfare systems disabled every Velthran ship's weapons and engines. Not a single shot hit a human vessel. The Velthran fleet floated in space, helpless. Their ships weren't destroyed, but they were completely powerless. The humans could have killed them all. Instead, Hanul broadcast a message. The message went to every Velthran world, not just their military. Every civilian screen, every public network, everyone heard it. "People of the Velthran Imperium," Hanul said. "Your leaders attacked us without provocation. We could respond with destruction. We could wipe out your fleet. We could bombard your worlds, but we won't. Instead, we offer you a choice." She paused, letting the words sink in. "Remove your warmonger leaders and join us in peace, or defend them and face the consequences. You have 1 week to decide. We will return your captured crews unharmed, but if you attack us again, we will not be this merciful." The reaction was immediate. Across the Velthran Imperium, people rioted. They were tired of wars. They were tired of leaders who made bad decisions. Within 3 days, the Velthran government fell. The new leadership contacted Minji immediately, begging for peace. "We accept," Minji said. "But understand this. Humanity doesn't seek revenge. We seek respect. Attack us again and there won't be a third chance." The message spread across the galaxy. Humanity had shown they could defend themselves without cruelty. They had shown they were strong but fair. They had shown they were nothing like what the Council had feared 300 years ago. Or rather, they were exactly what the Council had feared. Just not in the way anyone expected. 5 years after humanity's return, the galaxy looked completely different. Human technology had revitalized the economy. Trade was booming. The energy crisis was solved with human fusion generators. The remaining plague outbreaks were cured with human medicine. Pirates had mostly disappeared, hunted down by the Ghost Fleet. But more importantly, human culture had spread everywhere. Human music played on alien worlds. Human stories were translated into 1,000 languages. Human restaurants opened in every major station. Human fashion influenced alien designers. The things that the Council had once called cultural contamination were now celebrated as enrichment. Director Nari, now serving as the Council's chief scientist, worked in a laboratory on Earth. She still maintained the probe network, though fewer probes were needed now. Humanity didn't need to spy anymore. They were part of the Council. They had access to everything legally, but Nari kept the probes active anyway. Just in case. The galaxy had betrayed humanity once. It was wise to stay prepared. Fleet Marshal Hanul kept the Ghost Fleet at full readiness too. Most of the ships were docked now, their crews living normal lives. But they could be mobilized in hours if needed. The quantum fold drives meant they could reach any point in the galaxy faster than anyone else. "Do you think we'll need them again?" someone asked Hanul. "Maybe," she said. "Maybe not. But I'd rather have them and not need them than need them and not have them." Deep in the Kuiper Belt, the forge stations continued their work. They built ships. They processed materials. They prepared for futures that might never come. Humanity had learned the hard way to always be ready. Ambassador Minji worked long days at the Council, helping to resolve disputes between species. She was good at it. Humans understood conflict. They had spent 300 years preparing for it. One day, a young alien delegate approached her nervously. His species was new to the Council, just learning how things worked. "Ambassador," he said, "I've read the histories. I don't understand. How did humanity survive the banishment? What kept you going?" Minji smiled. It was a question she got often. "The Council made 2 mistakes," she said. "First, they thought isolation would weaken us. Instead, it freed us from rules that didn't make sense. It forced us to become completely self-sufficient. We learned we didn't need the galaxy. We could survive alone. And the second mistake?